Growing up, I was taught that it was one of the worst things in the world to be gay or to be bi or to be queer of any form. That it was something, a weakness that we gave into, some temptation that we could have prevented but then gave in.
So I didn't hear a whole lot about queer people growing up in my religion, but my parents were friends with a lot of queer people.
From my religious background, people's sexuality and orientation were non-existent. You were straight and that was nothing else. And along with gender, besides people thinking that it was just male and female, I was taught nothing different.
I grew up in Orem in the 50s and 60s, Orem, Utah, and it was a little Happy Valley town of not very many people. And honestly, by the time I graduated high school, I'd never met anyone who was gay or queer. So it just was not an issue. It was not something that was even on my radar growing up.
I didn't have an understanding of queerness. I think principally because of my religion of origin, wasn't really talked about. And if it was talked about, it was talked about in kind of hushed tones or talked around, not necessarily talked at. And so I think there was a big mystery, a big question mark as to what queerness even was, what it would mean.
When I first realized my sexual orientation, I was very young, and it definitely conflicted with religious beliefs that were around me, and I felt weird openly expressing about it because I'd never heard anything bad about it before. I hadn't heard anything about it before. So opening up about that was definitely trying.
Having this understanding of how awful of a thing it would be to be queer, to be gay, or to be bi was suffocating when I started to recognize things about myself. It was as if you were to take a big beach ball and shove it underwater, and the more you shoved it under, the more pressure to just explode came up. And that's how it felt, was starting to identify and see these signs that I just had to hide. I was like, I can't even think about that. I can't even pay attention because it was so terrifying to think that I could be something so terrible that I viewed as, that I was taught to view as being evil or awful. And so it was terrifying to try and to start to recognize these things.
Although I didn't get caught up in a lot of the rhetoric that the church was saying during a lot of my life from an early age somewhere, and I don't know where this came from, but I really felt a lot of shame for who I was. And it took a long time to figure out who I was. But shame and guilt and self-loathing and absolute fear of being found out were constant companions. So
It gave me a lot of cognitive dissonance to hear what my religious background was telling me, and then also going through my own self-discovery of, starting off, I think I'm gay, I think I'm non-binary, I think I'm polyamorous, and then having this background towards me saying that you can't be because you're not allowed to be. And it just caused me struggles for so many years, and it was hard hearing that.
One of the big impacts is without a real framework of some of these characteristics that I was noticing, some of the things that I recognized were different. I think the only thing I could do was put it into a category of bad or a category of weird or wrong or shameful. And so I think, because I think oftentimes we have a recognition early on about certain things, certain desires, wants, what I'm drawn to, what interests me, what excites me. But because I didn't really have a framework other than the framework that was given to me, heteronormativity, cisnormativity, I think there was a lot of fear about the things that now I would categorize as queer. So yeah, I think that's the lasting impact, is still trying to unattach those things that are different. That different doesn't necessarily have to be bad or wrong or something to be hidden or avoided.
My earliest memory of identifying of these emotions that I had was when I was a kid. And I had a dream that I actually was engaged to Reese Witherspoon. And I woke up and I had these feelings, and I actually wrote in my journal. I need to go find it. I wrote in my journal, it was almost like my prayer to God, and I was like, I will never have these feelings for a woman. I am so sorry. This will never happen again. But the feeling that I had of having an attraction to a woman was so like exciting, but because I felt that, I felt so much shame because I wasn't supposed to feel that. And so that was my earliest memory. And then, things, you start noticing and identifying things as you get older, going through your teenage years. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I met someone and had feelings for them. I had stronger feelings for it. And so I remember praying and saying, help me stop these. Help me stay away from this. Help me, push this away. Help me suffocate this feeling. And I kept battling with myself, really, and thinking I was battling with God, but I wasn't. I was battling with myself. And I remember one morning, I drove up into the mountains and I started writing it out, how I felt. And then I in turn started writing what I felt God would have said to me if you were sitting in front of me. And I wrote down, my feelings are a gift. And how I feel about people and my sexuality is a gift. And that changed everything for me, because it went from a poison and a plague to a gift and to something beautiful for me. And once I got that, it just shifted, and I was like, okay, this is what it is. I'm moving forward with this. I'm letting go of what I was taught, and I'm moving forward with what I know is true, because it felt right to me.